Hi there, everybody. This is Patrick Duffy, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson, welcoming you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television that will bring you part 2 of a conversation that began last week with John McCafferty and Tom Lisanti. Tom Lisanti, 60s movie historian and now 70s daytime television historian. Tom's latest book is an oral history of Texas. Texas, the first daytime soap opera to debut in the 1-hour format, which it did when it premiered on NBC in 1980, and a show that Fred Silverman, the head of NBC at the time, was so certain will become a big hit that he predicted that Texas would eventually move to primetime so that it compete head-to-head against the likes of Dallas. John McCafferty played the resident instigator on Texas, Billy Joe Wright. John is among the 30 actors, writers, directors, NBC executives, and other behind-the-scenes people that Tom interviewed for his latest book, Texas, an oral history of daytime's answer to Dallas, which you can find through our friends at Bear Manor Media as well as Amazon.com. I understand that the producers of the show particularly looked for stage actors or actors with experience working in theater when they were casting Texas because they felt they were better at learning dialogue quickly and that stage actors were more amenable to working as part of an ensemble. Tom, what do you think about that then, John?
Well, yeah, that was Paul Rauch. He was the executive producer. You know, he was producing Another World since the early 70s. And what bad or good things that people said about Paul, everybody seemed to agree that he had really good taste in casting stage actors and directors from Broadway. He felt the stage actors could handle the fast pace and memorization of dialogue. What happened with Texas, though, was the original Bible was pretty much accepted by Fred Silverman, but he had two points that he made the Corringtons change. The Decker family, which Karen Richmond was a part of, was supposed to be Mexican, and because it was Texas, and they would like the ranch hand. And he said no Texans. He said no Mexicans. So they had to change those characters to Anglos. And then he told them there's not enough young people. So they had to create a bunch of young people at the last second. And the young people on the show were mostly cast from L.A., like John and Karen and Randy Hamilton, who played Ricky, and Catherine Hicklin, who played Paige Marshall, and Dana Kimball, who played Dawn Marshall. They were last-minute people who came in. And so when the show started, they immediately noticed the difference between the stage actors who had experience on the show versus a lot of these newcomers and stuff. And Joyce is very critical in the book. She was very open about the disappointment, but not John McCafferty. I mean, John, she thought, was the best of the young people, and he was. I mean, Billy Joe, I mean, he was so unpredictable and so bad, but John was able to make you feel sorry, because you knew Billy Joe loved Nita, but he just went about everything all wrong. He thought she wanted, he needed to give her a better way of life and money, and he was taking shortcuts, and he was using some of the other women, but John had a thing where he just infused the character where you felt sorry for him, even though he did some really terrible things. And like I said, he was unpredictable. You never knew what he was going to do. Unfortunately, later on, they softened Billy Joe, in my opinion, way too much. But those first 6 months, John really stood out.
John?
Yes. I really felt sorry when I was sober, and I did love, Nita, and I think that saved me with people, because if you're just evil, villains have to either be funny or there has to be something other than just being this one color being evil. And of course, so I knew that, and it's an ironic thing about violence in marriages and whatever. I didn't know this until after the show, and then they had like Oprah Winfrey on about, men who beat their wives and whatever. And I wasn't aware of this, but from the talk shows, in other words, when Billy Joe was sorry, I was really sorry, and I really, almost tears in my eyes when I, apologized to her. But on Oprah Winfrey and these talk shows, it wasn't until later they say the reason that these, people who, in a relationship are violent is that the girlfriend or the wife says, "Oh, but he's so sorry." You don't realize how sorry he is. It's just a little bit of time that he's horrible, but you don't know what a great person they are. And I'm listeners going, "Oh my gosh, that's really how that dynamic works." Is that they think, well, he loves me, and a lot of times they have to, it takes them a while to say, "No, I got to get out of here. This toxicity could turn into, well, something like OJ, and but I didn't know that. I just played as an actor when I was really sorry. I really, believed it, and that's the way I played it. I wanted to mention something that Tom mentioned about the family of the Deckers. And when I first auditioned, I auditioned for Ricky Decker, but I was told that Billy Joe was supposed to be blonde hair, blue-eyed, a jock, and I thought, aha, they're doing the storyline from Giant.
Yeah.
So Dennis Hopper plays the blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, and his wife is Spanish, because it was Anita, when again, for the audition. And I was real surprised when suddenly I was Billy Joe, but I was told that they liked my screen test so much that they wanted, I was dark, and, and Ellen was the blonde-haired, blue-eyed. And they told me that they switched it because of me, which is nice.
That's a compliment. I mean, a lot of times you conceive of a character in writing, but then you may change a little bit when you realize, okay, this actor brings something that I hadn't considered, and so that works, and that helps flesh out the character.
Oh yeah, well, I was grateful to get the part.
And we're grateful to talk to John McCafferty and Tom Lisanti. John is among the 30 actors, writers, alumni of Texas that Tom interviewed for his latest book, Texas, An Oral History of Daytime's Answer to Dallas, available wherever books are sold through our friends at Bear Manor Media as well as Amazon.com.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson, thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hi, guys and girls. This is Kathleen Bradley, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Well, I'm not an aficionado of daytime dramas. I was more of a game show person when Texas was originally on the air. I have great respect for actors and people who work in daytime television, John because of how hard you work. And this is a 60-minute show aired 5 days a week, so that's 300 pages of script that you guys are shooting every week. That's the equivalent of like 3 movies. And so even though you don't have to memorize 300 pages, you got a lot of pages you got to memorize every day and do it as quickly as you can so that you can play it as convincingly as you can.
Yeah, that's true. And as an actor, the least artistic part for me is memorization. And I'm not one of those gifted people who can read something once and just, they have the photographic memory. I'm not like that. And when I was on Texas, it was just sheer terror that I stayed up all night memorizing, and that was the scariest part. But it was the best training, because after 2.5 years of doing that, then I could really memorize it. You work the muscle. But it was really terrifying. Yeah, it's like I got to learn, at the end of the day, after I'm exhausted, I can't go to bed, I got to memorize the stuff. And that was, like I said, as an actor, the least fun part for me is memorization.
Well, particularly because in this case, the actors were, sometimes with some projects, the director or the writer won't mind if you go a little bit off page, as long as you're within the spirit of what you're trying to convey in that scene or in this particular episode. But with Texas, I understand there was no latitude. You had to deliver everything word for word. And so as a young actor, as you say, there's a little bit of stress going into the project because you had to know you had to be on the book every day.
Right, and it was made clear to us that it was the contract with the Corringtons. It had to be word for word. But I threw in sugar bumps. It's just, Ellen Next, a very attractive girl, woman, and very shapely, and I just started saying it. And, of course, then it would be written in the script. But I didn't get yelled at, but I just popped in there and I just started calling her sugar bumps.
Well, that's a compliment to you that they started working that in, because they wouldn't do that if it didn't work, and B, if the viewers didn't respond to that.
Right. I felt they gave me some leeway.
Yeah.
Because I remember, as I'm reading Tom Lisanti's book about people, talking and, to the different directors and whatever. And I know the blocking was done in the, in the rehearsals, but I don't remember people coming to me and saying anything about, in other words, trying to change my character, or other people, they were saying, try this, try that. I generally sense that people left me alone with my creation of Billy Joe.
Is there a favorite storyline among the various plots that ran the course of Texas? John first, then Tom.
I just think everything Billy Joe did I'll tell you, I loved that, because I love doing comedy. They made Billy Joe, he was like a, barking dog and whatever, but Billy Joe thought he was tougher where he really wasn't, because I knew Billy Joe was a wimp in many ways. He couldn't beat up anybody, not like Ricky or whatever. He was always barking, and then whenever he pushed it, he lost, and it almost made him comical. And I played that up because I liked the comedy that would happen, because Billy Joe would have these brilliant ideas, and they'd always backfire, So, and I love that. I love the comedy of it, and I also love the fact that he could be scary. So here's a guy who could be. It was Billy Joe was such a gift. I had all these colors. I had him evil. I had him vulnerable. I have him, when he gives a speech, I'm in tears talking about, my wife leaving me, and I got to use all the colors and the canvas. I was just so grateful. But as Tom mentioned, and I agree with him, when they changed me, where I was just one color going around just, apologizing to everybody, I was basically castrated,
Yeah.
But I was hoping that they were telling me that the storyline coming up was going to be facing the crowd, which would be perfect for Billy Joe. The Andy Griffith character in the movie about a guy who suddenly gets famous and then turns dark, and but of course Texas didn't live long enough for that to happen.
Tom, do you have a favorite storyline?
Well, I guess I have two. I mean, when I first started watching it in the later part of 1980, it was pretty much Billy Joe's character that kind of drew me in the most. So when he was really bad and doing all these things, and then he got involved with Iris Carrington and her husband, Alex Wheeler, and it's like Alex gets shot, and Billy Joe is like the prime suspect. That whole plot was really interesting to me. And then the next set of writers after Joyce and Bill were Dorothy Purser and Sam Ratcliffe, and some of their stories I thought were really good in the summer of 1981. Particularly, there was about drilling for oil on the Marshall Ranch and the fight between the ranchers and the oil people. Iris' son Dennis married gold digger Paige Marshall, who had a porn past, and all the unsavory characters from Hollywood show up, and then one winds up dead, and Dennis is the prime suspect. That whole mystery was also very good. And Elena Karen Richmond goes on the run twice with this thug played by Tom Wiggins, and falls in love with her kidnapper, which was sort of like a rip-off of Luke and Laura, but Karen was so cute in the part, and Tom Wiggins was so hot. So those storylines from that point were also one of my favorite stories. So 80 through 81 are pretty much my favorite parts of Texas. 82, not so much.
John McCafferty and Tom Lisanti are on the line with us. John is among the many actors, writers, directors, NBC executives, and other behind-the-scenes personnel that Tom interviewed for his latest book, Texas, an oral history of daytime's answer to Dallas. We'll take a quick time out. We'll talk some more with John McCafferty and Tom Lisanti when we come back here on TV Confidential.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go. And pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-222-0511. 800-222-0511. Again, that's 800-222-0511.